Good morning, people. It is Friday, TGIF. It is the 23rd of January, about 9:45 Pacific time. Beautiful, chilly, sunny day here in the Pacific Northwest. Um, yeah, happy Friday. Kind of an insane week, as they all have been lately. Um, and one of the things that occurs to me is the question that gets whispered sometimes is, how did we get here? Um, That's a very complicated question to answer. For me, simply, I would say that many people think this is a question of politics or social issues or economics. But I think really at the base of all of this, what we are dealing with is espionage. What we have been dealing with is a long-term campaign with its root in the Kremlin, to destabilize democracies, therefore delegitimize democracies and weaken them, and allow authoritarian powers such as Russia and China um, to gain more power in the world, to weaken and fracture Europe so that it cannot stand against Russian aggression, um, to hearten the dictators across the country to work together to fight against democracy and freedom. Very simple. That's how I believe we got here. It is espionage. If you're old enough, such as myself, 57, you remember the Cold War. Um, the existential nature of it was that either we survived or they survived. And then all of a sudden, poof, the Soviet Union, the great big nemesis of us all, just disappeared quietly. Now, at the time, the entire basis of the Western alliance was its opposition to the Soviet Union and China. That was the basis of our existence. That was our reason for being. And then all of a sudden, the Soviet Union just poof, disappeared. And China at that time wasn't really seen as a threat. They were just seen as a useful factory for the world, a way to offload production to them, cut costs, increase profits, and everybody was fine, right? And with the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was seen that we had succeeded. And what was touted and vaulted was not correct at that time. It was not that democracy had succeeded. It was vaulted as capitalism succeeding. It wasn't said to be a collapse of the political structure, but the economic structure of the Soviet Union. And we all went about our business and started trying making deals, and the corruption spread and spread, while the political root within the Kremlin remained the same as it had been previously, as the Soviet Union remained the same as it had been previously when it was still Tsarist Russia. The Russians have been pissed off at the United States since the Tsar sold the Alaskan territory, which had previously been Russian, to the United States. Many people in the late Soviet Union, including Vladimir Putin and most of his elites that surround him, began whispering that they thought that that sale was illegal. Flash forward to recent times. If you'll remember, there was a time earlier in the year of 2025 when the usurper said he was going to go meet with Vladimir Putin. That meeting took place in Alaska. Now, if you remember, when he gave that pre-helicopter flight interview as he was preparing to go to Alaska, the usurper said, "I'm going to Alaska to meet Vladimir Putin." In Russia. The President of the United States actually said, "I'm going to Alaska to meet Vladimir Putin in Russia." Now, why would he do that? Yeah, he's dumb and he makes a lot of mistakes. But he did that on purpose because his good friend, his master, Vladimir Putin wanted that soundbite to play to his people who believe they rightfully should own and control Alaska. How did we get here? We got here through complacency, through being lulled to sleep by what I consider to be a master stroke of espionage that has taken the entirety of my life to conduct. You know, during the Cold War, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Nikita Khrushchev said, "We will bury you." When the Soviet Union collapsed, that desire amongst the Russian elites to destroy the United States and democracy did not go away. What went away is the United States and the West's realization that there was a threat. Because the West was blinded with the idea of profits. And because the West had already been corrupt within itself about its true political nature. So all that mattered was the profits, the money. And everybody was all on board, not just here in the United States, but in Europe as well. And that's how they got themselves into the mess they were in when the Ukrainian conflict got really hot and Russia invaded eastern Ukraine. And Europe suddenly realized that they were importing about 60% of their fuel and energy from Russia. That's when we decided and understood that we also were compromised because a lot of bad people around the world own a lot of stock, have a lot of economic sway within our system so that we couldn't act freely against their aggression. How did we get here? As I have said now a couple times in this video and have said previously, it's through espionage. And we have not been alone. It's been a long campaign. If you'll remember, there was a president elected to the Ukraine, I think it was 2016, who was a Russian puppet, and there was the Maidan Revolution. They kicked him out, after which Zelensky came to power. So the Russians worked to try and destabilize Ukraine, try to put a puppet into office and get Ukraine back in their grasp. Now, at the same time, if you'll remember, there was a gentleman named Boris Johnson who was a rabble-rouser, mayor of London, who decided to run for prime minister of the nation, and his main platform was, we're tired of suffering, and we're going to pull out of the European Union, and we're going to go on our own. To destabilize the European Union and to hurt an ally of the United States economically, which all took place. Now, at the same time, the, grooming of the candidate, who is now the usurper, was long in process. And if you wonder where the Epstein files originate, and what the Epstein files was about, or the Trump files with guest star Jeffrey Epstein, it was a money laundering scheme for the Russians. And to gain influence over individuals. And that was run by Jeffrey Epstein. That was run by the usurper for the Russians. And so now within our system, within many governments of the United States, within many boardrooms around the world, within royal palaces around the world, there are individuals who are compromised, and they are on a list that is not just the Epstein list, but there's another list that's in the Kremlin. And so that's how we got here. We got here by people being weak, by the Russians using people's humanity and weakness against them to cause them to be compromised and do the bidding of the Kremlin. That's how we got here. That's how I see it. I've invited people to interact with me and what I'm saying in these videos. And also, I'll say again, everyone needs to make their own video to say they do not consent to what's going on. But I really would like some people to just start interacting. If you're seeing this, please comment, like, share, subscribe, whatever the case may be. But there needs to be some education among the American people that we did not get here through politics. We did not get here through social policy. We did not get here through economics. We got here through a long, sustained, decades, half-century long campaign of espionage, at least. And how we pull those claws out of us, I don't know. We're in the process right now. What I do postulate and consider to be very true is when we get through this, the United States standing in the world is going to be immeasurably diminished. And what we can expect in terms of cooperation from the rest of the world for anything will be immeasurably diminished. And it's going to be very difficult. And we're going to have to stand on our principle and go through a long process of cleaning things out, because there are a lot of people in our system, in our society, in our government who are compromised. And when we get through this, it's not going to mean that all of a sudden we can just take all the time in the world to concentrate on cleaning up our own mess. It's going to mean that we're going to have to go after some things out in the world as well. We're going to have to go out into the world and support people who are also fighting against this crap. When we get through this, we're going to have to put the full weight that we still have behind Ukraine defeating Russia. Plain and simple. We have to do this. When we get through this, it's not going to be like everything goes back to some easy, regular time with economics being the main factor in most people's life. We're in a struggle now. It's not going to resolve easily. It's going to be at least a decade. At least a decade. Where we're going to have to be dedicated and exert our strengths in a very coordinated and dedicated manner over a decade. We're going to have to keep our eyes focused on the ball for a long time, because really the people that oppose us have been doing that. Most Americans are ignorant of the fact that the Chinese are working on a 100-year plan right now. It's called the Long March. It ends in 2050, at which time their plan is to be the preeminent power on the planet. As I've alluded, the Russians have also been working on a long plan. They see us, the United States, as illegitimate because they do not believe in democracy. And so we, on our side, need to start looking at things in the long term. Not trying to find quick and easy fixes, understanding that we need to work hard in a dedicated manner to get the results that we want and need in the future. And we're in the process of doing that. Right now, a lot of Americans are waking up. A lot of Americans are active when they never were before. A lot of Americans are now just starting to pay attention. We need to encourage each other, welcome each other in community, and help each other learn how to resist this oppression that's taking place in the United States, help each other learn the historical truths that have been forgotten, help each other learn that the choice between democracy and dictatorship is not just a simple choice between two types of system. It's a choice between two types of civilization. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? The people we are opposed to and who oppose us do not believe in inalienable rights. We must show them all that we do. Stand up. Make some noise. We, the people, will persevere. We will survive this. We will take back the reins of our government, and we will renovate this nation and reinvigorate democracy. All those who say this is the end of the United States, you miss the point. You miss the point. The United States is the culmination of humanity's realization that these inalienable rights do exist, and that will never be put back into the shadows. Go carefully, friends. Spirit be with you.